Okay, go ahead. I think you can just very quickly introduce. I already gave an introduction to about you. Maybe you can just wanted to put it your way. Just take a minute, and then we can, the whole thing is on you. You can just start talking.
Awesome. No, it's exciting to be, sort of back and to talk to like a bunch of exciting, like folks. And yeah, I think that seems to be like the new studio there. Like Shanwas, I've not have seen this one, so I'm probably going to be in Bangalore in October. So I'll probably drop by this time and and take a look. But yeah, just a quick start a little bit about me. Like I'm Karthik. I was a designer or a design engineer at at like Texo about 6 years back, 7 years back now. And like I enjoyed a lot of your freedom and a lot of your freedom to express when I was there. We were just starting out with like Gemklip as in like as a concept at that time, and I think I learned like a lot in like a year and a half that I spent there, and I still sort of like keep a lot of those sort of experiences with me, but also like a lot of like, I think of like wisdom that I've sort of like learned from Shanawaz himself. I still talk to people about it, saying that hey, this is what my tech mentor had told me. So there's like a bunch of like gems that he keeps on like sort of dropping here and there. So that would be my thing to everybody who is like working under like Shanawaz, to sort of keep on like picking up the like on all of those gems, because I still sort of like recall them and still apply as much of them as possible in the work I do. Just to give a very sort of like brief intro about Envision, like I want this talk to be a more like a discussion than just like me talking about things, because sort of future is uncertain. I have my prediction for it, but it's just a prediction, and I think I want this to be more interactive than just me giving a lecture. So I will sort of keep the part about Envision very brief, just so that because I'm pretty sure all of you have already I read a bunch about it on the website. So I'll just give a brief intro. I'll do a demo. I do have a very small presentation, which is very much like a high level one. And I think once we sort of set the base with that presentation, we can start going into a discussion about what we think the future is going to be as it evolves. With regards to Envision itself, Envision started about 5 years back as a master's a thesis of me of mine. I was an industrial design student here in the Netherlands, and I picked up a thesis at that time on how to increase independence for people with a vision impairment. And as I was doing my like research for the thesis, I had just stumbled across this insight that for like a lot of people with a vision impairment, independence almost always meant access to information. And because of the fact that the information around us, because it happens to be in a visual form, their inability to access that information is the thing that is causing a dependency in their life. So when a blind person is like walking into a train station, the information is up there on display, but because it happens to be a visual information, they cannot access it, and they have to ask somebody else for help. But at the same time, I understood that it's pretty impractical to expect the information or the environment around you to change all the time. You cannot go and put a braille stickers on everything around you. That's when I started to take a look into how can the technologies of today, like artificial intelligence, image recognition, how can they be used to understand the environment without having to like change the environment. We started off with very simple a smartphone app with which you could take images of things, and we had built different AI engines inside of that app that can extract different kinds of images and speak them out. So they could sort of understand your text, they could understand objects, understand like faces, and just depending on which information a blind person is looking for, they're able to extract that and speak it out to them. Over the years, that sort of I kept on evolving the software that was underlying this whole app, until 2 years back we had a big evolution in it, where we were able to port this like software onto a smart glass. We did that in partnership with like Google, where we take the Google Glass hardware and we put our software on it, and we offer that as a product called Envision glasses. I have a pair. You're right here. This is the Google Glass, but inside of this is the Envision software in it. And what it does is it has it has a bunch of built-in like functionalities that can recognize different kinds of information around it. Let me just show you two quick examples so that you understand what the state of the art is of this AI plus a wearable technology as of now. And I think that would set the basis of us extrapolating from here as to what the future could hold. So in this glasses, there is a feature which is called scan text, right? With scan text, I'm able to scan any piece of text or a document, and the AI will go out and be able to understand the contents of the document and speak it out to me, right? So for example, here I have like a menu from a restaurant that I went to recently. So let me just go to the scan text option. Scan text. Let me know if the output of the glasses are audible to you. I have it hooked up to a Bluetooth speaker just so that it's audible. Oops. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do a double tap on scan text. Scan text. It's gonna give me some information about how to hold the document properly. Move document up or your head down. Move document up or your head down. So it offers me that instructions on how to hold the document so that the entirety of the document is in the frame. So it's constantly looking for the edges, and then it speaks out the output to me. Lunch and social sharing. HOUSEMAD, Enfuse yellowfin tuna tartar has avocado, mango. Hummus traditional chickpea hummus with warm naan bread and crisp vegetables 14. So right now it is speaking out the contents of of this a menu to me, so I can sort of go from like top to bottom and be able to read the whole or like menu. But the interesting part is now after the menu has been scanned, I can also just interact with the menu and ask it a question. So we have done an integration with like Chat GPT, where I can just ask it a question of the menu. So I can simply ask it something like, "What are the desserts?" Envision is answering your question. Bourbon caramel bread pudding, chocolate layer cake, cheesecake topped with local berries, and ice cream, vanilla bean, decadent chocolate, or savory strawberry are the desserts offered in Enfuse. So it's able to understand the question that I've asked of it. Then it's able to then go ahead and look at the menu and understand the structure of the menu. And if you would see, it doesn't even say a desserts on it. It says spoonful of like sugar, but it has the intelligence to understand that, hey, that's probably what the desserts are. And it's just able to speak out your desserts to me. I can also ask it a follow-up question. So I can ask it something like, how much is the ice cream? Envision is answering your question. The price of the ice cream is $8. So it's also able to understand that continue asking a question about is like an 8 that's next to the ice cream. So because this is a menu we're talking about, that 8 you're most likely sort of refers to the price of the menu, right? So this added like layer of intelligence is what sort of elevates the interaction, because now it's almost as good as having a sighted assistant who is next to you, right? Because if you're in a restaurant as a blind person, and if you're with a sighted person, you'll probably just ask them, right? You'll probably just ask them that, hey, is there a vegetarian option in the menu? Or sort of like, what is the most expensive champagne on the menu? You'll just talk to them like you would be talking to a friend, but now you can do the same thing with AI. And AI has an intelligence on a language end, where you don't have to like learn the commands. You can just talk to it the way you will like normally talk, and the AI will just take the burden on itself to understand it and then offer you the answer. So this same thing can now be done with any sort of document. So you can have a bill and just ask it the amount you need to pay, or you have like a letter from the income tax people, just ask it for a summary. Something that that I do a lot, because I don't speak your Dutch as well still, and I get all these letters from income tax. I just take a picture of it and ask it to give me a summary, and it'll do that for me in English, right? So all of those use cases is what it's able to unlock as of now. So this is everything to do with your text, right? But now we can do a similar thing with images, and that's the stuff that we have now that is still a bit more in, I would say, beta. So it's still, like all the way. I would say, like, it's not as refined yet. I think your AI has come a long way in understanding text, but images is still a bit of a black box for it. But let me still give you a demo of it so you understand what is the level of accuracy you can achieve now with images as well.
Home, instant, call, detect more features, more BMEVV.
So I'm gonna go ahead and take an image of whatever I see like in front of me right now. So just so that you get an image of, you get an understanding of it. I'm gonna go ahead and take an image of this.
Envision is processing your image.
It's gonna do a bit of a processing.
This image shows a desk with a MacBook Pro laptop, a keyboard, a phone, a black JBL speaker, a glass, a bottle of Absolute vodka, and some papers. Would you like more details on any specific item?
There is a bottle of Absolute a vodka, but this is not vodka. This is just what I feel like like water in, because it's a nice looking bottle. But as you could see, it's able to understand that, hey, there's a MacBook, there's a keyboard, there is a JBL speaker. So it's not just saying it's like a speaker, right? It's a JBL speaker. It's not saying it's a bottle. It's a bottle of Absolute or vodka. So it has that level of added intelligence on it, where it can understand these things, right? And now the interesting part is I can interact with this image now, right? So I can ask it stuff. So I can ask it for something like, what is the color of the JBL speaker?
The JBL speaker is black. Would you like more details on any other item?
So you can do stuff like that, right? So I can ask it for something like, what do you see on the computer screen? Didn't catch that. Let me ask it again. What do you see on the laptop screen?
On the laptop screen, I see a website with a video playing. The video appears to be of a band performing. Would you like more details on any other item?
So it does that, right? But let me go ahead and offer it like a better image, right? So I can let me show a pin your Siddharth on my screen. So his image is big, and I'm gonna now ask AI to give me a description of him. So I'm gonna come here close,
BMEVV.
and I'm gonna take an image.
Envision is processing your image. The image appears to be a screenshot of a video call with a man's face in the center and another man's face in the top right corner. Would you like me to provide more details or a different angle?
Like, give me a description of the person in as much detail as possible.
Q&A is failed. Try again.
Give me a description of the person in as much detail as possible.
Q&A is failed. Try again.
Right, doesn't want to do it today. But that sort of is the level of intelligence that we have now, where it sort of gives like a very detailed a description. So it's no longer just doing an object a recognition and like a relationship mapping. So it's not just you're saying that, hey, I see a laptop and I see a bottle, and I'm gonna just make a relationship between them. That's what like the previous sort of AI image captioning sort of like models used to do. but now there is like a real added a layer of intelligence that's gone inside of it, which is actually what, the whole exciting aspect of AI going like forward, where it's becoming more of a general AI, right? I think that's the, like the exciting aspect of it. With that, I think that sort of, like sets a base of of where we are now. And with that, let me just quickly, jump into like a very small, presentation I put together just just 5 minutes before. So it's not very, polished, but at least it sort of could, serve as a basis of what the future could hold, right? And I think there are, two aspects that are important to talk about when it comes to how technology evolves in a future. So I think that's what I'm going to sort of focus on, as to how technology is going to evolve in, like in sort of like years to come. And I think there are, two aspects to it: hardware and software. But don't look at them as two, distinct stuff. They're, one of the same. I think, gone are the days where you have like a purely your like hardware a device and a purely a software device. Every your device now, has to be a smart device, and your hardware and software always have to go hand in hand. But in terms of evolution, on the hardware end, I see uh, the evolution being like a three-step thing, right? Where Joe, I think as of now we are on the first level of that evolution, where, so hardware is becoming a more and more of a wearable, right? It's going away from something you hold in your hands. It's going away from something you sort of have you're on a table. Your hardware as of now is you're tending towards becoming something that you wear on yourself. That's probably what's going to happen first over the course of your like next few years, as the technology continues to shrink, as the technology continues to be cheaper, as the technology continues to be like more accessible. I think that's the first big iteration we'll see, where you will see a lot more of a wearable technology out there. And it starts with something like a smart glass. That's what we have already seen. So we've seen the Google Glass that Envision is using, or the Apple Vision Pro that Apple has just put out. Of course, it's the first version, so it's big and like it's bulky. But if you extrapolate from from that if this is what Apple has put out in the first year, and if they're going to iterate on it for every year, like the way they have done with the iPhones and like the watches and the iPads, then you can see how this could evolve into something that's a much more like much more of like a lightweight option, and a much more affordable option for everyone to have. And what a wearable will do is basically replace a lot of the other computers that you have around you. So like your laptop is a computer, your phone is a computer. All of the compute is probably is going to like shrink, and it's going to like shrink to a form factor of something that you have on yourself. So I think that's like the first step of it. But then there is another angle to the future. I'm not sure if it is a subsequent step or a parallel step. But you probably have heard of this company called Humane. I'm not sure if you have heard of it or not. If you have not heard of it, I'll probably show you a video of it.
Oh, we haven't heard of it. Yeah.
Okay. Let me actually check if I'm just sharing my audio, because I'm not sure I did that. So let me share my screen once more with share sound enabled. So our Humane is basically a company started by this guy. His name is Imran Chaudhry. Imran Chaudhry is the guy at Apple who was responsible for the design of the iPhone, of the iPad, and of Mac. He was one of the top designers at Apple. He used to work under like Johnny Ive. So he was like the top designer at Apple. About 3 years back, like he left Apple and he said, I'm going to start my own kind of technology company, which is going to be very different from anything that's out there. And earlier this year, he introduced the company that he's been working on, which is so far been a stealth company. So they still haven't really announced exactly what the product is. But he recently did a TED talk where he sort of gave us a glimpse of what they're building on. So I'm gonna just play this video so you understand it.
How often do we find ourselves in a new city, wrestling with our phones, trying not to bump into people, trying to figure out where we're going and where we're supposed to be? It's even harder when we don't speak the language, right? Let me show you something. Invisible devices should feel so natural to use that you almost forget about their existence.
Des appareils invisibles devraient sembler si naturels à utiliser. Vous oubliez presque leur existence.
You'll note that's me and my voice speaking fluent French, using an AI speech model that's part of my own AI. This is not a deep fake. In fact, it's deeply profound.
So that's what Imran's vision of the future is, where he says that technology is going to become more invisible, right? It's a very sort of contrasting appeal to what Apple is saying, where it's saying it's going to be literally on your face, like future technology. But what Imran is saying, that it's just something that's going to be not even noticeable. It's going to be invisible in the background, where you don't even see the device, but you can still interact with having that AI always on you. So this, I feel, is either going to be a subsequent step where everybody first gets on a wearable and then the technology just shrinks to a point where it becomes invisible, or it could become a parallel track where you have a band of people who are like, hey, we are going to go away from having a wearable on our face, but more in the direction of having more of an invisible technology, where the technology is in there, but technology is not in our way, right? So Imran is very against screens. He's like, I don't want people to be looking at screens. So in this case, where he's just doing a translation, he's like, I'm not looking at the screen, but I'm looking at people, and the technology is still on me and it's still going to do its thing. So that sort of is what Imran's vision of the future is, which I think is either a subsequent or a parallel step. And then the step after that, which as of now probably might sound insane, but I think is going to become inevitable at some point, is going to be the embedded your hardware, right? Embedded your hardware basically means you have a chip in your brain, and then with that you basically form a human and a computer interface. This company called Neuralink in a US, it's another company formed by Elon Musk. They just got approval to start testing on humans with this chip. So far, they have not been testing on humans. They've been testing on animals and things, but they just got NFT approval to start testing with humans, right? And as of now, what these can do is only produce audio outputs. So basically, your brain can send output your signals to do things. So if you want to, click on a button, or zoom into things and things like that, then you just have to think about it, and the thing would be done. So that sort of is what they're trying to build. So it's basically a human and a computer interface. But yeah, if this progresses quickly enough, and if the regulations don't prove too much of a blocker, this could be the future we might just see ourselves going down to, where you're either going to be a person who has embedded stuff on them which will augment you, or you're a person who does not have it. So that's probably going to become the future, and it's a lot more reachable than we would otherwise think. It's no longer like a sci-fi thing. There is actually a practical pathway to achieve this in the short term. Going from the hardware to the software part of it, I think that's where the big change is. I think your hardware is more just the medium of getting the software happen. And I think in your software, the term you've all been hearing all around, AI, that's going to be the dominating factor when it comes to how the software of the future is going to evolve, right? And I think there has been a recent of a transformation from AI to to a generative AI. That's the reason there has been a lot more talk about AI in the recent past, because AI has existed, of course, for decades. It's not a new concept at all. But the reason it's just exploded recently is because we now have the capability to make a generative AI, right? And so what's the difference between the two? I think that's the interesting part to talk about. So until now, AI usually used to follow a machine, a learning protocol, right? Where AI were very specific. You have to be very specific with building your AIs. For example, if you want to build an AI to recognize a cat and a dog, right? That's basically the simplest AI that you want to build. You will teach it like 100 images, or like a million images of a cat. You will teach it a million images of a dog, and then if you show it like an image based on what it has learned, it will tell if this is a cat or a dog, right? That's basically sort of or what it will do. If you show it a sheep, it's not going to know exactly what it is, or it will make a prediction that I think it's 15% this is a dog, or something like that. Like it will offer you a confidence rate with which it thinks this is either one of the two, because that AI has been taught to be very specific. So it needs to be bound between what specifically it has been like trained to do. I think the generative AI revolution is sort of has been happening over the past few years, where they've been attempting to teach an AI to be as close to a human mind as like possible. I think that's what a lot of our researchers have been trying to like decode, is how do humans think, like like when we are are learning about a dog, how do we like or learn about a dog, right? Because humans are not like taught to recognize a dog through a series of images. When like you're a kid, like nobody comes and like shows you a million images of a dog and be like, hey, this is what a dog is. Or nobody says, okay, if it has one nose which is like this, if it has like two big ears, then it's a dog. Like we don't ever learn this in like a disjointed way. But there is like a layer of intelligence where we just sort of understand what a dog is, right? Tomorrow, if any of you, if I if I like show you a breed of dog that you haven't ever seen, you will still be with a very high degree of like confidence be able to say, okay, I think this is a dog. It's a breed that I don't know of, but I still know because of my intelligence that this is a dog. Which is just something that the AI has like so far been unable to do, because the way we've been teaching an AI has been very different from the way we've been teaching like a human or a baby. But what some of these your researchers have been doing in a recent past have been is that they're attempting to like teach an AI like they will teach a human, where they just taught everything and being allowed to figure out the relationships between things on their own, right? Where you don't attempt to teach them specifics, but you just dump so like whole bunch of information on them, and you ask AI to figure out how to like learn that thing by themselves, right? So like how earlier you will have to give AI like a million images of a dog. Now you don't like do the part of asking it to identify it's a dog. You just give it like a bunch, like a like a million images of all animals that you have, and the AI will just figure out how to build like a relationship between them to do the differentiations between them. That's one of the biggest reason of explosion of something like a chat GPT. So the way so the whole concept of a GPT has existed for like a long while, but the way it has evolved recently was that they just didn't teach it how humans talk, or how humans interact. It just it just sort of exposed AI to like a bunch of existing a data of like human interaction. So it just was like fed all the interactions we have had on your Twitter, all the interactions we have had on stuff like Reddit, any publicly available interaction medium has all been piped into this like massive language of tech model, and it has been told that like you figure out so how to like learn from this. And I think that's been the surprising element, that when you allow AI that kind of your freedom, it sort of understands in a very similar way a human understands. And that's why when your chat GPT sometimes it talks, it feels very sort of like human. It almost feels like there is actually a like a dude on the other end who is writing your answers. And that's because it has been trained on dudes who have been answering answers across the internet. So that's sort of what it has been like trained on, and it has sort of like learned about things in a very similar way sort of humans have like learned about things. That's why a lot of things it does, especially with image recognition stuff. It's very surprising. It's almost inexplicable. It's almost inexplicable how an AI is doing it. But the only the way AI has been able to do it is because it's mimicking exactly how like a human is doing it. What this means for us right now, because this a generative AI is already sort of here, which means that and it's pretty good enough at this point to replace a lot of the low level tasks that humans have been doing, right? And that's why there's a need to for us as our designers to evolve, because like this like literally means that a lot of the low level designers are going to be replaced by AI very shortly, right? um, think of it in a similar sense to, and I know it sounds a bit absurd to sort of think of it that this is something that we always speak of as like a doomsday where AI will take away our jobs, but it is not a new thing. That this is a thing that has always happened in the past, right? Like when the printing press came, all the people who used to be scribes, right? That was a big profession at the time, where you're a scribe, where you literally used to write things overnight. Printing presses here, like you're out of a job. Same thing happened, and but like much more. Like recent example is probably Translate, right? When a Google had like a Translate app, a lot of people whose job was to be a translator was immediately over, right? Of course, the like the high level ones stayed, right? If you're a diplomatic, your translator, if you are like a legal translator, if you are a very specialized person within that field, then of course you still have your job. But if you're just a person who was translating stuff that didn't matter, like you're just translating stuff like copies of like a website, all of those jobs very immediately became replaced as soon as the Google Translate came into picture. And you could see that on these these websites like your freelancers, or website like Fiverr's, where you see a lot of these like translators complaining saying that, hey, now I don't have a job because everybody who only wanted to pay like $5 for a translation, that has stopped now. Like nobody wants to pay like $5 for a translation anymore, because I can do it on like Google, and I'm okay with the quality of it like not being super high, because I just want a $5 translation anyways. That same thing is going to happen in like design, where any of like low level like tasks is going to be replaced, right? If you are somebody who just makes like logos, right, that's your thing, and like you make it for cheap, like you're like a $5 like logo person, you're a freelancer who's like, hey, if you give me $5, I'll make a logo for you. And AI can do a better job at making a logo now as compared to you, and AI can do hundreds of iterations that a human will not be able to do. So AI has that capability now, where you can just give it a prompt that is pretty good enough to give you exactly the logo that you wanted to give it to you in the format that you wanted to, right? And AI also has options to ideate on things, right? So it's not like you have to be very, very descriptive about it. You can be very you can actually be very open about it, and it will do like sort of most of the heavy lifting on offering you the logo that it did like you're looking for. So I think that's where we need to be aware of, because stuff like if you're only making like renders, all of that is where the design sort of industry will mainly be hit. But also, but that's sort of like the negative of it. But the positive of it is now we have an assistant, like for free, who can do unlimited tasks for us to so help us with the design like process, right? Especially in the ideation, sort of like phases of things. So it's sort of, if you offer AI a brief in a good enough way, then it has the ability to generate ideas that would probably, and at a speed that would, that would be very hard for like humans to generate, right? I think that's where it really comes in handy, where in the very beginning of phases of starting something, it's going to be super handy. And I think the biggest thing, which is what I use it a lot for, is doing a lot of the work that you don't want to do, that's outside of the creative work, right? Maybe your Shanwas knows this, when you have to send a proposal to a client, right? You need to, and that needs to be like a details of it, like here are the steps of that we will do, here is what the process is going to be like. Now you can do that with like chat GPT, right? Where you just give it like a brief saying that, hey, like give me a proposal for a client who does this for industrial like design services, and your chat GPT is going to already give you like a very nice or like proposal that is ready to be sent. So now like you can focus on like the creative and like fun part of your job, instead of spending 30 minutes on a proposal that is going to be like a generic one anyways. So it allows you to sort of like free your time basically, and put your times on things which is more of the creative endeavor. That's where the AI will not be able to replace, therefore, that you as a human bring in. Just jumping off of that, and I think we'll just sort of have to come back to this, because I think that's the most interesting aspect for discussion. But I think where you're heading into is what a lot of people in the industry call AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. And this is the like the piece is that also like a lot of people are also very afraid of, like a lot of people have been asking for like stopping AI development and stuff like that, because they're afraid of an AGI, which is an AI which is a general intelligence AI, your AI, which is not trained to do very specific things, but it is an AI that is capable of general intelligence, right? So that's as good as a like a human. You can ask it for any task. It's not limited to only doing like or chatting with like a text. It's not only limited to like creating images. It's not only like limited to translation, but it is like a general intelligence AI which can do anything that you want it to do. I think that's what we are on the path to. OpenAI believes this is doable within the next like 10 years. But people are afraid that as soon as you have a self-learning AI, that's going to just accelerate, because once an AI is able to like learn and do things by itself, it's just going to be able to sort of scrape the whole internet and like learn at such an accelerated your pace, that there could be a danger to it as well, where it could sort of like come to a conclusion which is against sort of human interest. And I think that's what people are afraid of. But what a lot of people are optimistic about, that if you have this general intelligence, then a lot of sort of like laborious the human tasks will all be now done by an AI, offering your humans a lot of like time to indulge in more of a creative endeavors. So like those are like two sides of the discussion that's actually happening. So that's actually it in a nutshell about what's happening in the technology space on a hardware and on a software end. So yeah, super curious to like hear any of the opinions that you have or questions that you might have about what's going on.
Yeah, I have this sort of analogy. Probably a lot of people can connect. When we have this electronics, development that started booming. So I'm talking about an era where we're talking about mostly all mechanical devices, like let's say lock and bicycles and bikes and all these things. And suddenly this electronics started evolving. At that point of time, the industrial designers were sort of taking advantage of this development by picking up any mechanical objects or any mechanically what you call only mechanical kind of devices and start reinventing it. So there is a sort of an electronic lock now. Okay, and where you can control with your, Bluetooth and phone and all. So that actually opened up a lot of opportunities because you could take pretty much anything which is mechanical, like a bottle, like a drinking bottle, put some electronics on it, and then they say, hey, this tells you what temperature is it inside, and that whole genre of devices started coming into the market. I don't know how popular they are, but then there is a sort of a temptation for industrial designers to move this whole or reinvent all these things like into a new form with added electronics. I wouldn't say intelligence, but I would say advancement. Okay. So now, before even the wearable as well as you spoke about the other one, which is more of an invisible device. Before we reach there, do we see something that our current electronic devices, like the laptops, the MacBooks, and your phones and all, having this ability to, be very intelligent, so which means that you're adding the software component onto the existing hardware, and of course, maybe making necessary changes in the hardware. For example, putting an extra camera there or whatever. Okay, or probably every device is going to have a camera or multiple cameras for that matter. But then the device as it is not really dramatic like a wearable device or something like that, or like a Vision Pro or something. It's not like which you have not seen. It is like pretty much what you have seen. So I'm thinking that I don't know whether we'll skip that, but I'm thinking that there will be a scenario where there's a huge gap for us to put in this intelligence with a little bit of modifications on the existing thing, and then bringing this amazing potential. Before we start completely letting all these devices go and then adopting completely new stuff. For example, I would imagine, let's say, my MacBook not even wanting me to just put my fingerprint. You would just look at me and say, hey, it is the same way I could say that if there is somebody coming in which I feel is sensitive, just don't allow, let's say, Abir to look at my laptop. I just have a command, and then the moment he's anywhere near, it would probably do whatever it has to do, so that it has to protect. Or if I say that if somebody comes, if Mahesh comes, please tell him that I'm going to be out for half a day like that. So then my laptop is there. It's like representing me as a human, as another extension of myself. It has intelligence, it has these cameras, blah, blah, blah. But it's just a laptop at the moment, okay? And then when Mahesh comes in, he says, hey, Chana just told you, he's going to be out for half a day. I don't know whether that era or that is there, or we're going to skip that, So this could happen with, of course, it's happening with EVs. Like EVs are now getting a lot of cameras everywhere, you have a front camera, back camera, but I don't know what they're doing with it. They are saying that they are parking the vehicle themselves, but I think that's a very obvious thing. But you can do a lot many other things, like identifying a robber or a cop or some enforcement agencies. I don't know what. So maybe you could do a lot of them. So we are not seeing that. But is this something that you think is a gap where we can address?
Yeah, no, I think that's like a good point you bring up, and I think this was like a big thing. I would say about about like 5-6 years back, where there was talk about this thing called IoT, right? The Internet of Things. That was the term for it, where people did imagine that every object around you will become like smarter. Everything will have sensors in it, and then they'll all speak to each other. And I think, though that was a good vision, I think the reason that didn't really take off as much was, I think, there was a physical limitation on a lot of these things. Like people didn't anticipate that just putting a sensor on a chair, for example, is not enough. Now that needs to have a battery that needs to be replaced. Now you need to make a connection of this to Wi-Fi, and yeah, like now, and you need to sort of do a bit of like a setup for that. So now people can't just buy a chair and put it in their house. They need to do all of these setup. So I think it did happen with like a lot of devices that still exist. For example, you can get a smart fridge, you can get a smart like washing machine, right? Where like a smart fridge, you can actually, there is like a camera on the inside on from the phone. You can see from the supermarket think that, hey, do I still have like tomatoes? Or actually I don't. I'm gonna go and like buy more tomatoes. So I think this was like a big phase and people really expected it to blow up, but I think it didn't blow up, because there was that added electronic sort of the component, which means there will be batteries which are not yet like really good. I think people underestimate how much or how a little the battery technologies has evolved over the past like decade. Like everything else has evolved very good, but I think the battery technology has not evolved as quickly as people thought it would. Like even on like today on your iPhones, the battery is like the worst part of it, right? And even though they've evolved everything else like in an iPhone, the battery performance of an iPhone today is the same as the battery performance of an iPhone 5 years back. So I think that was a big drawback, and I think the other thing was that I think it was about how much added a value are you actually able to get, right? And I think people didn't see the added value as much when this whole thing came out. Like if I have a chair as opposed to having a smart chair, is it actually so much more beneficial for me to actually invest so much more effort and like money in it, right?
Yeah.
I have a smart, a washing machine which will inform me as soon as like your washing is done, and it'll give me like a notification on my phone. But does that really add so much more like value than it's just like playing a sound when it's done? So I think that value add aspect is what was not, I think it wasn't like high enough for it to actually become a thing that people are okay to pay extra for. I think that's where there is always like a trade-off where you need to have like high enough of like value for it to be a trade-off. I think like you mentioned in EVs that your value add is significant. I think almost all the EVs now the car from like an app on your phone. You can start the AC in the car, like before you go in. So I think like a lot of EVs have become that Internet of Things and and like smartness. But I think it didn't evolve the way people thought, where everything will become smart. I don't think we have to reach sort of that like, like phase, and I doubt that will that will happen until and unless the battery technology evolves significantly. Because having electronics on everything around you means there is a battery on everything around you, and you don't want to be replacing the battery on everything every a few months, because I think that's what is a big deal breaker for like a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. So again, I think that important part of the question was, is that gap still available for us to add this AI-based intelligence into regular electronics products that we have? Like making it even more smarter. Like that laptop is a smarter object, but then it is not intelligent like the way the way you talk to ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Would it happen that the phones and laptops and the cars and all those things, of course, I think they are heading in the direction, but before we adopting the wearables and going seriously hi-fi, would there be a phase where we transform all these into intelligent beings, intelligent stuff?
Yeah. I think so. I think that interactivity that this AI brings, that's going to definitely happen. I think it was supposed to already like happen with like Siri and Alexa and Google Home, but I think they didn't have the your like level of intelligence that we have now, right? With Siri or Alexa, if you don't like give the right command, or if you don't use the right phrasing, it will say, "I'm sorry, I don't understand." That's what was used to happen like a lot of time. But I think now that in your intelligence, you should be able to ask your Siri to write a program for you, for example, like saying that, hey, every time like I step out of my house, I want you to give me a reminder. You can still do it today, but you need to open like a shortcuts app, open an set a location, and there's like a whole bunch of steps to do that. But I think with the kind of AI we have now, which understands a language in a much more deeper level, I think that should be doable, where you can just talk to your laptop or your phone, and there will be that intelligence in there where it is able to solve a problem for you instead of doing like functions for you, basically. I think there is one more a key aspect that could, I think that's often overlooked, and I think that's also like a reason for things not to be as smart as they could be, is the privacy aspect of this all, right? So I think that's a big your concern still for a lot of people, is what about your privacy, especially with the internet of your things. People are afraid of that. Hey, if I have a like a smart fridge, means it can be hacked, right? Somebody can hack into it, look into my data. This was the case with a lot of the cameras that people are being offered, right? There is a camera that like looks out of your
Calling bell and all those things.
yeah, and people were able to hack into those cameras, right? So that will immediately cause you a cause you're like a concern if somebody, if there is a camera at your home, but then it's not secure enough, or you don't understand it enough, and you're afraid now that somebody can just hack into like a camera in your home at any time and take a look at what's happening around you. So I think there are serious sort of privacy concerns as well, especially because all of these innovations are happening through your private companies, which has an incentive to collect your data, and the regulations is not able to catch up quickly enough with the advancements in technologies. So it's going to be very, very hard for people to get over the privacy anxiety that people have. That was one of the biggest a reason for the for like failure of the Google the Glass when it came out originally about a decade back, where people just got very apprehensive about like somebody always having a camera on their face which could be recording them, right? Even though your Google said, hey, it will have like a like a light to inform you now you're being recorded and stuff like that, but people are still apprehensive of a camera recording them. I think that apprehensive has decreased now with everybody having a camera on their phone all the time. So there is always a camera that could be recording you at any time. So that apprehension has decreased, but I don't think it has decreased to the point where people are okay with there being a camera with them all the time.
One another question that I have is since you said this open AI or the generative AI is about creating that learning algorithm or something like that, so it's like unlike human beings, the learning algorithm once is done, you could technically hand it over to anyone, or copy paste and give it to anyone, right? Why would there be like multiple AI people going behind creating this, language models? Because once it is known, it is known, and then you can just sell it, right? So that is
Yeah.
first part of the question. Second part of the question is that if that is the case, then we are looking at even more narrow, monopoly. Like today we have Apple, Google, blah blah blah. At least a couple of them in your hand, but then there could be a scenario when one person has these language models which is perfected, and then that is enough for everybody in the world, because language, and I say, it's not like the spoken language, right? It's about the way you understand it and comprehend, and then draw insights. So
Yeah.
that is not having any technical language barrier of French, Spanish, Indian, Hindi, like that. It doesn't really matter for them. So if somebody builds one, then is it the end of the game?
Yeah, so I think that's what will happen with AGI. If like whoever sort of like builds AGI, that's like literally the end game, right? Because if you have a general intelligence, then anybody can build anything with it. That's why there's like a lot of talk about building it in a responsible way, because like basically once you hit AGI, then you basically have an AI that can then do anything after that point. Then all of these individual your company's development will stop. So I think that's why there is an active like forces that are trying to stop development of AGI also. Just to maybe give some anecdotal examples. So like Google had a version of a chat GPT 5 years back, right? This has been an internal like project in a Google, and they sort of built a chat GPT 5 years back, but internally they made a decision to not put it out because they were afraid of two things. A, they were afraid that this is too dangerous, because this can literally do anything, right? It can sort of answer very, in like a human like way, where it can sort of replace a lot of jobs overnight. There will be like like the consequences of like everybody just having access to such kind of like model is going to be huge. That was like a fear that they had. And the second fear that they had was that this could be the first real threat to their search business, right? So like Google's, so our cash cow is your search, and they have been ruling your search for over 2 decades now, and like nobody has been able to even come close to offering an alternative to like Google search. So they literally have had a monopoly over that for like 2 decades, and that is the way Google makes money, is through ads on search. That is 80% of like revenue they make is through search ads. Like the first time that is under threat, and if people stop searching on like Google and they instead go ask like a chat GPT instead, Google doesn't have opportunities now to show ads, right? I think that's one of the reasons why Google is now in like a panic mode. There is a code red that everybody has to like work on AI, because as soon as OpenAI put out like chat GPT, people they were afraid that people will now start building a habit of just asking an AI things instead of coming to Google and doing a search in which they have the opportunity to show ads. So I think that's one big aspect of it, why everybody is trying to build their own versions as of now, because A, they don't want the competition to replace them, but also B, it's all about data collection, right? So an AI is only as good as the data it has access to. So immediately after OpenAI put out ChatGPT, all of these other companies which used to offer their APIs for free have now stopped offering their APIs. So you can no longer get like a access to like a Twitter API for free. You can no longer get access to a to like to like a Reddit API for free. All of these are like like the big websites that all of these AI models used to scrape to understand a human interaction. Now they're all started to like charge for their data, and that's going to become the mode going forward, where it's going to be about who has access to better like data, right? I think that's the reason why sort of like Google and the Microsoft and all these people are like sort of our leaders in AI, is because these are the people who have the most amount of like data that can be used to like train people. And as soon as everybody's now aware of the fact that this can be done, now everybody wants to start a collection of their own data. So one of the big things that OpenAI is doing right now is every interaction that you're having with like ChatGPT, it's using this interaction to improve itself. So all of that improvement is just going to like ChatGPT and OpenAI, and someone like a Google who also has like a Bard, which is not yet as good, is because they do not have as big of a feedback loop that OpenAI has. So I think that's why everybody is trying to build a similar thing, so that they can all start their own data collection thing, because that is what will be a determinant of like who has the best AI solution in the short term, but also in the long term, who has the best shot at building an AGI.
So is it like the AI model needs data to feed?
Hmm.
Is it like that all the time?
Yeah. So AI models will. So basically, an AI, like a model is basically like like a learning like model. So it can be like, hey, this is how you should like learn this, and then you feed it your data, and both the quantity and the and like a quality of the data is what will determine how good the AI is. And maybe just to answer the question as to it's sort of like so how it can be helpful for like other companies, right? The whole thing is that once these the models are built by OpenAI or by Google or anybody else, you can use that, or they can like sell that tech model to other people who want to build their own specialized AI, right? For example, they can sell a specialized AI model to like Texo, and you can teach it all the of tech project that Texo has ever done, everything that all of the project that Texo is doing right now. All of that information is going to be with like a central AI. Now, tomorrow, if you need data from a project that you did, right? If you're like, hey, you know what, we did a project with a Unilever a year back. I forgot how much was the quote. AI has all of the information. It just sort of like give you like the answer to that. So I think these kind of specialized AI is place where we will then be like be heading to, and that's what that you will be paying a Google or an OpenAI or Apple for, is to offer you access to a specialized AI that can be trained on like your own data.
Yeah. We were mentioning ki it is all about data. So what I see here is ki AI is basically hungry for data which is existing or connections which is existing. So points like you started, you told ki we teach AI like how we teach a human. So we feed in, let's say, millions of dog images and then ask ki this is that basic AI which is dog and cat. Next thing, the challenging as in the separation between human essence and AI still is stuck on to ki we haven't still heard ki AI is making insights or newer connections. So, जैसे in ChatGPT also, you ask a question, this guy gives you a whatever 100 words answer. Now, if you know thermodynamics and that question is related to thermodynamics, you can go and ask, I want in depth, I want 2000 words answer. So this guy will go to, let's say, BSc 4th year, BSc 4th year तक का concept, and that guy will explain thermodynamics. But all of these things are already existing. It's like it's still a Google search, but it is just that feature of Google which was known as "I'm feeling lucky" was actually this. Rather than going through multiple links, you click that "I'm feeling lucky." If you remember that button next to search, it was "I'm feeling lucky." So that "I'm feeling lucky" was stopping you from going on to multiple links, and you just pinpoint one link, and that there will be answer. So ChatGPT kind of existed. It is just the conversation bit, which is it talks like, it replies like human and stuff like that. You can counter here if you feel like. And then next is key. What we humans are as designers, what we are taught is to make new connections. Although we don't call it invention these days, we call it innovation, because invention is still, it's a 20th century thing. So that insight making, is it possible? Can you see that new connections or cross connection is still possible, but newer connection, newer insight is being drawn by machine?
It is being proved already in politics. I'm sorry. Hi, Karthik. I just joined very late. How are you? I was reading some 2 weeks ago. No, sorry, 1 month ago. There was a big thing going on with Donald Trump, and he was getting indicted for some reproach that they have to him. So you know what they wanted to do? They wanted to use the AI to create a picture of him getting arrested by the police.
That is all still existing.
Yeah, but they created something new. It doesn't exist. So technically, they have invented a reality. Now, if you look at this picture very clearly, you will notice, if you look very carefully, that this fellow has got 3 legs. So they have discovered that AI, at the moment, still have some limits to get it really, really close to reality, that you can't really notice that it is actually not a real shot.
Okay.
So obviously,
that you're talking about are not real anyways. So
yes.
What we strive for is the newer connection which are not existing anywhere.
correct. So it is like somebody can call it fake.
No, I have what you're saying over here. So I know, I don't remember the name of there's this architectural company. So similar to what Karthik gave example of TechZone. So what they've done is they've developed a whole AI for their own company itself.
I know. I think that Art Limited, I think.
I don't know. And, there was some talk by Emmanuel in which he was talking about this. So basically, they like all their existing, because they already have so many projects done through the years, but they know the style of the company, the way they make a code, the way they create drawings for their clients and everything. But one thing which was not able to, they were not able to achieve was the AI is seeing how they've grown through the years. Like obviously, a company is never static. It's through the years how they've grown, but then at the stage that they are, it will continue that, or will it actually be able to grow in a similar manner? Is what you're saying, something like that.
So, building is counter to you, counter as in, just clarifying. An image of Trump getting handcuffed by police. So all of the subjects in the image are already existing. You are not inventing anything.
But not with the person.
No, Trump's face also exists on the internet. Handcuffs also. So that is not innovation in any.
Something new that the AI will probably allow.
But isn't it innovation also like that? Because at today's innovation, you don't create anything new. You only kind of
You get inspiration for existing and imitate.
extension. Like
Yes.
as in, of course, there is a degree to it.
Hmm.
So when AI is able to generate something which is new, you don't want to admit it, but when you do something, you may call it, hey, this is an innovation, like that.
Yeah.
But the question, Karthik, is that is open AI is capability more of this kind of extrapolation, or is it like pulling data and giving it in a very human-like manner?
I think it's both, right? So I think, yeah, like you said, it's about making the connections. So I would argue that an AI can make a connection in a lot better way than a human can, right? Because it has much like vaster a database than what like human has.
Okay.
Yeah, for example, and like also Shanavas said that everything is a remix, right? There's no like innovation is basically sort of human mind going that, hey, I have all of this knowledge, now I'm going to apply this to this, and I will, with a combination of these two, I'll make something new. And I think that's what like is happening. And because AI, by the way it's built, it has a lot more technology than your like human will have. It has the ability to sort of give you like a whole bunch of ideas, right? Let me probably do like a like an example here. So right, for example, we want AI to do like a design for us of something, right? So I'm gonna ask AI to design a toaster, but now I can ask you to do it in a style that I want to, right? Which has a retro 80s look inspired by Dieter Rams Brown, right? I can just ask it to do a generation of this for us. So now this will be able to sort of combine idea of a toaster with other existing ideas of stuff like this, right?
Pausing here. So will this AI in future, will it, so here you've asked to design a toaster. Now can this AI in future devise a method to toast bread and not design a toaster? That is my question.
Yeah.
So can it identify the problem and solve that problem rather than what is existing and what is historic, recreating it in some different fashion with high-tech image and render?
Yeah.
Can it design something which toasts bread and not a toaster?
Yeah, but technically it should be, right? Like if it has the knowledge, if you ask it, and so then it all comes down to how good is your prompt, right? It all comes down to like if you can do like a prompt engineering in a way which is actually good, right? So for example, if I ask that like a question, but I ask it in like a right way. So I'm gonna ask it for ideas for toasting a bread, but without using a traditional toaster. So now this can give me ideas much faster than any of like you in the room can, right? So that's where this AI can help. So it might not give me a complete solution, but now I have a bunch of ideas that I can immediately start ideating upon, and I can ask you to sort of mix these things and offer me a more detailed sort of like a design spec.
Technically, what it does is it is being made at the moment to act like human beings.
Yeah.
So pretty much we are getting in the direction. So how you are thinking is technically interpreted and then programmed.
But then how I am thinking is a very upbringing based thing. Now how you interpret this pen is very you, and how I interpret this pen is very me. How personality? Exactly. What happens to the personality? Now, because of my upbringing, my personality, I am able to bring a solution onto the table which is very unique to this, and no one is able to bring that. Similarly, there are 10 people sitting on this table.
I guess that part of it will be still retained,
Exactly.
because even if it is AI, I mean, I don't know if I'm right, but when you have sort of trained one AI engine, it will have its own style. That is a third human being in the room.
Yes. So one more thing.
Am I right? I don't know, because it is not like it is going to be my style or your style. That's what Karthik was telling, that probably there will be services offered by Google and AI companies to individuals as well as the companies selling that, okay, now you can buy this generic one and train yourself to what you need, because I don't want those frills, I only want form, means, function, blah blah like that.
That is
my style is
happening.
adopted by the AI.
Your YouTube feed is that. Basically, your Spotify feed is that.
And actually, it sort of like frees you to like to do only that, right? Where you can now put all of your energy and focus on that ideation part, where you're sort of where you think that, hey, I have an idea for a pen that is like unique, but then you can ask AI to do like a render of the pen for you, so that like you don't have to now like spend hours in like a CAD software or like render software building like a render of that idea. So that way you can.
Ideation which you are saying, which is given to us, the human beings, precious human beings, what will then come in our hands after 15-20 years?
Yeah, but that's what. So, but that's why, like I said, that it will eliminate like a low level job, right? If I'm a client, right, I'm like, I want a pen. I don't care about is it the best from a design standpoint or all. I want a pen that is different from anything else that exists in the market. So then I will ask an AI instead of asking a human, because with human there's a cost, right? You as a designer, if I come to Texo, there's a cost to it. I'll just ask AI that like give me a design of of a unique pen that is in line with my identity of my brand, and like here is a document of the identity of my brand, and now you have to like design a pen on the basis of that. AI will be able to like do that, right? It offers you images, it offers you like a render. I will just email that to somewhere in like China saying that, hey, I want this pen, can you make it for me? So the role of like Texo as a design consulting in this case is eliminated for a client who is not looking for something super unique. He's like, I just want a pen that I want to like a giveaway at an exhibition, right? Yeah. So like that will be eliminated. But if it's a company that like makes pen only, if your pen is there, your like core of the product, then of course they'll come to someone like Texo and be like, hey, I want to make the best pen that ever is. In that case, all of your jobs are still like secure, but all of these other jobs where people will just want to like design a pen just to like a giveaway, that they'll probably just simply ask an AI for.
Yeah, 2 points I wanted to just sort of to bring in here to support this whatever you said is that a couple of days, I think Siddhartha and Bharat will be able to understand that yesterday we had a meeting with that medical device company, right? Okay, so that guy wanted a product to match, let's say, Philips product. Okay, and we were talking about many options and sort of making the whole thing juicy. He said, "I don't want to." What is this exact word he used? Don't try to.
Don't give me romantic ideas.
Yeah. Don't give me romantic ideas. We just wanted to look like Philips. Okay, so now this is exactly what AI can do. I can say, give me a product which is because we say, that'll take time. It's going to be like we have to do research and all these things. No. We can never beat Philips. Okay, we wanted to be like Philips because because they said their customers are looking at Philips. They say, yeah, like that. Understood? No. So we have to be like Philips. Right now they are not like that. And second, the sad point is that when you talk about uniqueness and all these things, these are only done by leaders in a particular segment. Let's say there's a car company. Okay, the car company leader want to be unique. The rest of them are called followers. In technical industry, we call as leaders and followers, right? There's only one leader. Perhaps Apple is the leader for some glasses, or Vision Pro, Apple is the leader now. So the rest of them will try to follow. And they have to catch up. They have to catch up now. And when they become the leader, then the notch is the top. So technically the rest of the things, if you say 100, only one is a leader, the rest of the 99 are taking followers. So in that, the last 20 of them probably will technically use AI and get away with it.
So can an AI become a leader in this case?
There could be. That is what I'm.
One more statement for essay discussion, adding on to his point was, can AI learn the concept of evolution and then evolve itself?
No, I think
Natural selection.
actually there is a philosopher which who argued that humans don't use machines to evolve, but machines use humans to evolve. Now that created a lot of questions in people's mind that because out of the blue, one guy is throwing this onto you that machines are using human, you are not using machine. So now again, I think it can happen, not in near future. Maybe right now machines evolve to help, but not to replace human, right? But then I think there may be
No,
a
it's already existing that machine is replacing human. If you go to Japan and you book an hotel night, you will have robots like welcoming you, talking to you, booking, doing everything.
Yeah, exactly. Now, again, one more question comes: how much independence are we giving to AI? Like, it's a very interesting topic which I find. I was giving some prompts to Midjourney to make some art, but then there are some terms which are banned to use.
So that's what the question I wanted to ask you, Karthik, is now the AI you're talking about. The AI you're talking about is the AI that we are trying to build on a well-intentioned basis. Understood? So meaning you want to use it in the profit of a human being, making an intelligence behaving like a human being. Now, let me tell you, human being on Earth, the 8 billion people we have, I believe that they are good and bad people. So now, can an AI somehow, because of the data we give, become badly intentioned?
Exactly.
Like this reminds me of a movie which is very old. It's a movie with Jamie Lee Curtis, who just won the Oscar this year for Best Supporter Actress. So she is quite having notoriety. The movie is called Virus. It speaks about a world where the machine rule the world above human, and the human has to defend themselves because the machine suddenly had become badly intentioned. Because we are badly intentioned. We are creating to do
all the cartoons are like that, right?
Yeah. In science fiction, you have so many examples. Even the Matrix movies are like based on AI, ruling the world and so on.
Okay, so guys, I want to just because I think this time is also precious. Let me just
No,
I also have
sorry
a
to
question,
interrupt,
actually.
Shanavas. I think I want to discuss something that happened very recently, like my interaction with AI, and that made me think about AI in a certain way, and I can tell what I felt about it, and you can tell whether that reflects the current status of AI or not. Okay, so this experience basically comes from reading stories written by AI. Okay, so very recently my niece was into some writing, and my sister was also trying to help her out and things like that, and I was wondering what if there is AI that can do something about this. So I just randomly googled up artificial intelligent AI story writers or something like that, and it gave me links of a couple of websites. Okay, And for each of these websites to work, the template was fairly similar. So you had to enter a couple of trigger words. And with that, the website or the AI system there was capable of generating a story on its own. Okay. So once I enter the prompt words and I let it write a story, once you read the story, you know that, okay, this has basically like taken some patterns and made a story out of it. But if you take the actual content or the plot, there is basically nothing. So it's just fluff. But it has a very clear pattern, in the sense it would start saying, long time ago, because that is how so many stories start. So that is like a proper reference for it. And towards the end, it says something like they lived happily ever after, because that's again a very clear pattern that it is mimicking. But the actual plot is where the human creativity comes in, right, for writing a story. And that is where it felt lacking in general. So what I would say is, like, probably you can design a AI to be very good at very specific things, or you can design an AI to be very good at like a broad level generic, information processing and things like that. And to probably create a combination of both of these, as it is like the times are right now, it may be a challenge, is what I feel. Could it be that way?
I think that's a very good conclusion. I think that's exactly how it is. I think the state at which AI is as of now, like I said, it can do a lot of the low level tasks, right? So it might not replace an author today who writes a story. What it could replace is somebody who writes a blog, for example, right? If your Shanavas was simply to record a transcription of this conversation we have just had, you can just feed that to your ChatGPT and say like, hey, I want you to make a blog post out of this, right? And AI, that will do a very good job at making a very good blog post. So that earlier would have been an internship, right? You have a copywriting intern whose job it would be to make a blog post out of stuff like this. Now AI can do that for you. So of course it won't become an author who could probably write a best-selling like novel, but I think it can definitely do a very good job at doing like a blog post. It does very good at giving a summary of like a meeting. It can very well write agendas. It like a lot of the copy that we write at Envision, like for the glasses, anything that you see on the website, all are written by GPT, because stuff like that is what it's very like a good at as of now.
But Bharat, you should also think that we are looking at a Ford T model right now of GPT.
I'm sorry.
We are looking at a Ford T, Ford Model T, which is right now anonymous. I mean, similar to what we are talking about as ChatGPT version, what we are accessing now, right? Look at the Tesla car now today. Imagine the evolution, So at that level, I think we can pretty much say that there will be competition. Too much to almost everything. I mean, you agree with that or not? Right?
No, I think you're right. So I think that's what. So I think that's a good way to look at it. That right now it's at that level and it's already doing so much. And the other thing important is important that the evolution will happen a lot faster here as opposed to how it happened with the cars. Like from a T to a Tesla, it took like 50 years. That's not the pace that AI will grow. AI will grow at an exponential like place. So within the next like 3 to 5 years, I won't be surprised if there is a best-selling AI author, right? If it's able to understand exactly how to improve on plots, how to think about the new plots, how to do that. It's not incomprehensible that in like 5 years time that is doable if the growth happens the way it's happening as of now.
For 5 questions, okay. Karthik, before that, do you have time, or should I just restrict 5 questions and then?
I have time. I have about like half an hour. Then let's say I had 20 minutes, and then I have a meeting at 1 o'clock.
Okay, so another 30 minutes we wind up for that's a dead stop. Okay. So, any questions?
So I was just thinking about the part of your presentation when you were talking about the hardware and the software, and like overall over here we majorly only talked about the software part of it. And when we talked about the cameras initially, how so many devices do, like almost all devices have cameras, and it's almost equivalent to like the senses we like as humans, what our senses are for us to gain information from our environment. That's how similarly that's the receptors for artificial intelligence, correct? But then similar to for in order for it to do actually do everything, output other than digital output, physical output. So like that's where robotics also almost comes in. But do you think there is a gap between like the software and the hardware, or because that's what's going on in my mind. But I just want to know your opinion on it.
Yeah.
Actually, Karthik, before you answer that, what I wanted to ask is pretty similar. So let me just maybe explain that a bit more, and you can maybe answer both of them. I wanted to ask something similar, like if Texo started documenting all their product building projects. So imagine we did 5 types of water purifiers. Okay, let's just go with water purifiers. And in the past 5 years, Texo has done 5 water purifiers. And if I were to sit and upload all this data of physical building, which I mean things which we have learned from Shanawaz while working with him, like what is a 5 mm thickness, what is a construction lip, like technical, very hardcore technical details which are required in injection molding, CNC machining processes, which are things which are required to actually make a product. So would that over a period of time, when I start feeding this specialized AI, like for instance, if we go to Google and we tell them that, okay, build us a AI model specifically for Texo, which is actually going to help us or help build a product better. Do you think that is possible? Which I think is what I think Anshman is also asking. Like, would that be able to start building better CAD models in 2-3 years? Would that translate in some time?
Like
I
all the development that at least I've been noticing around us is mostly digital.
Yeah.
Translation of it to actually becoming physical does always
Yeah.
require human intervention as of now.
Yeah.
So exactly. So just to maybe to like draw some sort of parallels to what like Siddharth said, right? So basically, sort of what you said is already happening in the realm of software tech development, right? Where people are now asking AI to just write the code, right? If you're building a website, just give it the prompt saying that, hey, this is how I want the website. This is where you put the button. Just talk to it in like a plain English, and then it offers you the code for the website with a entirely with like a website build. Now if you extrapolate that to like a CAD software, which at the end of the day is still a software, of course the way we interact with it as designers is in a visual way, where we are sort of like drawing the lines and doing the extrude and all of that. But what's happening in the background is your ones and zeros. It's basically a software program that is just like translating that. So that way it is possible to also do it with a prompt, right? So if you feed it saying that, hey, I'm going to use such and such injection like molding, so these are the things to take care of, that this is the tolerance you should have, this is like all things that you need to maintain, and then you like, sort of build this for me. So exactly how for building a website it's able to like translate a prompt into a code, it can also do that for building a CAD, where it is able to like translate a prompt into a code, but now in a CAD software, right? So technically it is doable, just that somebody now has to build that bridge, right? Which is that's the only missing part. Same with like coding, it does a pretty good job with HTML with like JavaScript, and with C, it doesn't do like that great with some of like newer like languages. So I think that is inevitable. I would say like that's it's not a question of if, it's more a question of like when. So that part is going to definitely happen. But then
The Fusion 360 software that we use has something called a generative model, which we have not, that module is not procured by us. It doesn't come with the version that we buy. But if you wanted to buy it, we have to subscribe to it. And every generator model that we make, you pay. It's not like any,
Okay.
no. So it's not like it is available for the next year. It's like you make a model, you pay for that. No? And then it is more of a very 3D printed kind of a version of a CAD.
Okay.
You know, so it itself will check for the stresses, levels, and everything, and then it give you sort of a very alien kind of a models, which is actually pretty trendy these days. So it is already happening to a certain level. Is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and I think, and also like Adobe has like a Photoshop now, which is like which also has like a generative AI in it, where you can just expand. Like you have a single image, you just expand, and it does something called outplanning, and it will just fill in the details of the outside, right? I could imagine a similar things happening with like CAD. You design, like a part of it, and you expand, and it just designs, like all sort of like rest of the parts as well. But just to go back to the question about the hardware aspect of it, I think there are sort of two things. I think like one, there is of course a lot more physical limitation as opposed to software limitation. So I think that's why people are not taking the like the hardware part as seriously, because or like a misuse of the hardware part as seriously. But I think that could also become a real both a challenge and opportunity very soon, where somebody was talking about putting a chat GPT on a humanoid like robot, right? That could be very dangerous, because once you put it on a humanoid, like the robot, you can ask it, you can actually offer it like like prompts to do your physical tasks, right? If it's a humanoid, a robot, you can ask it to sort of pick up a box and like put it away. You can ask it to do very sort of like human task, but that also means that you can also ask it to stab people, right? Now when you put like a knife in like in the hands of like a robot, and you've asked it a prompt to go and stab somebody, who is to blame? Like, is it you? Is it the robot? Is it the software, the developer on the robot? So I think that's when it sort of starts a very slippery slope of how can you stop that, right? People will say you can stop that by putting your filters like you have on like chat GPT right now, where you can in which you're not allowed to ask it some questions. But then there are always going to be like loopholes that people will find. Like even now there are ways to ask in chat GPT stuff that you otherwise are not able to ask, right? There are like loopholes that exist. So if they say, okay, you cannot ask the robot to stab somebody, I will just ask the robot to pick up like a stone and hurl the stone at them. Now then they have to also put a stop to that. So there will be infinite number of like filters that they have to put to stop it. I think that's where it becomes a slippery slope, that once you put something like AI on a hardware that is capable of executing physical actions, that might start a slippery slope which might not have an end to. And that's one of the things that we should definitely be a bit more wary of. Because that could really start us down a path which could end in a very much of a doomsday scenario.
Has it not happened as of now because of limitations of the technology, or because of actually ethical reasons people are not implementing it?
It's ethical reason. So there is somebody who put it on like a Raspberry Tech Pi, and they sort of did some very simple operations with it. But yeah, I think it's very ethically, people are like very much averse to it, because as of now, Chat GPT is still very much controlled by OpenAI, and even though they've put out sort of plugins right now, they are very like are diligently doing a curation of the plugins. But it's only a matter of time before people build their own versions of like GPT, and then they will be very much unrestricted. That's why OpenAI has also been getting a lot of criticism of the fact that they're not open sourcing their code, right? They're not showing people exactly how this AI operations are actually happening. And OpenAI's a defense for that is that, yeah, like if we open it, nothing will stop people from building their own versions, and they can just remove all the filters, and that could lead to consequences like this. So that's the reason why OpenAI is still insistent on keeping it a secret. But I think they've opened like a Pandora's box now, where everybody is attempting to build exactly what they've built, and it's sooner or later it's going to happen. So you can imagine somebody can sort of have a bunch of like drones that they're programmed by like ChatGPT. Like you put some explosives on it and just hurl it at your buildings. There's nothing you can do to stop that. So yeah, it can get very dangerous very quickly, and that's why people are both excited about this AI development, but also reasonably afraid of it.
Yeah, I think that's how Gauti was also mentioning good people and bad people, and I think that is a point even I agree with. It's eventually boiling down to our personal boundaries, ethics, and some sense of humanization, I think. Because the one you just mentioned, the drones and explosive ammunitions, there's a TED video I saw about it, where a bunch of drones can be programmed to target specific populations. Now, technically, there is nothing stopping and even programming color code, skin code, some ethical dresses. I mean, you can program them on whatever information has been gathered. And I would even say the previous generation of warfare drones that we currently have, something like an autonomous drone, which is like a Predator or some Orion or something, they all are pretty much part of it. I mean, who do we actually blame when a drone drops a bomb? Do we blame the drone operator, the political party or the country behind it, or the drone itself? In the end, it is still devastation and it is a loss of life. But how is that being justified? So I think all these parts are our personal sense of boundaries. It's just depends on us, I think.
Something that is very like a practical question I want to ask you is that you had the Google Glass, right? And then you said you removed that Google software and then you put in your own software with the AI capability, and then it is now able to follow up and answer questions like that, right? So this is a manifestation of a device being empowered by AI. We are not talking about somebody typing prompts on, we're talking about literally using it. That's pretty much why I thought he's one of the best guys to tell us how ID and AI can kind of, so this glass is like a manifestation now. So first question is, what is the does it really mean when you say we have removed the software and put the new software? Is it an OS kind of thing that you change? Second question is, if that can be done on a glass, can I not do it on the devices that I can put software on, like my phone, my laptop, the car? The car has an OS, right? The car has an OS which triggers the ABS and so many things it does. Will this kind of a thing be the manifestation of AI on physical objects, where ID comes into picture? Where it kind of moves towards hardware, if not fully. Like for example, watch. Now watch is smart, but not AI kind of frequencies.
Yeah. So technically, you can flash any so hardware and put your own software on it. Of course, when you do it, it's considered you're illegal, and you are in your violation of the terms and the conditions of the company that you buy it from. For example, if like this used to happen often like a decade back, when people used to like jailbreak an iPhone, right? That was like a common thing, where you purchase an iPhone but you put your version of OS on it because you don't like the Apple's version. That was a common thing, and people just don't do it anymore. But technically, you can still like jailbreak your iPhone and put your own software on it. Just that you will not get like warranty from Apple anymore. That's like the like worst thing that happens. So yeah, technically you can just hack into any so hardware device that has a software component on it. and do it. Of course, these big companies put a lot of effort into making their systems as secure. A lot of these big companies will just like brick the device if you are attempting to put your software on it, where they will just shut everything off in the, in the device. So there are enough security or measures that are in the devices. But yeah, like the software engineers I like work with here, I've just seen them hack into like literally any like wearable hardware that's out there. So we just keep ordering a lot of different variable which are just being announced. And yeah, like they are, I think it's just about how intelligent is the hacker as opposed to how intelligent was the person who did the cybersecurity on it. And you can always find like a smarter person who can sort of hack into did, because at the end of the day it's all just software, and there's always a way to take break into it if we just know exactly how the software was structured in the first place.
No, that's fine, but then you did with the permission of Google, right? So likewise, I'm asking that whether when we conceive products, right? Can we, how can I put AI into the product?
Okay. It's doable. So basically, your Android is an open source thing. So you can put Android OS. So basically, everything would like it will need like an OS as a basis. So you can either go with like a Linux as the OS, which is like a lot more flexible, but also it needs a lot more expertise to work with. Or Android is also something that you can put on any hardware that you build. Once you have an OS, then you can build applications on top of them. So you can build an application which will like use this different AI components. So basically, the Envision glasses is just like a bunch of applications which is built on top of the OS that we have put in there, right? So it is still built on top of Android. So it's like we do use the Android OS that's in the glasses, and we just take over the whole application, a layer of like the glasses, where people only interact with the Envision app as soon as the like the like the like turn on the glasses. And after that, it's just about using different SDKs to do build an app. So there will be a speech to text, which is the one that is doing like voice command. Then there is like image capture, which is actually you're taking your image. Then there is your OCR, which is doing like a recognition of the text that's in the image. And then that output is, then there is an API from OpenAI. So you just like send that text to OpenAI, and then you can ask it a question with a prompt. So all of that is just application building on top of an OS that's in that's in the hardware.
That's how. Yeah. Anybody? I think we have just a few minutes more, so we can have a couple of more. Otherwise,
yeah, Karthik, I was just wanting to know. See, basically, though we are talking all hi-fi things, I mean, basically looking at the upper pyramid of the thing, you have taken AI and solved most, one of the grassroots problems, like basically, people, blind people trying to navigate. So I am more interested in that segment. Like, do you think, I mean, because there's a plethora of problems flying over there, right? When it comes to Indian context or even in the whole world. So, like if I think of, scribes now being there for, the blind people. So every time you go for the exam, the blind carries a scribe with him. So, these kind of things, have you seen any such parallels like this, where I am imagining when I go to a restaurant, I probably scan my food and, and it tells me if there is something dangerous in it, which is not suitable to my, to my health. Because I'm high on, I have BP, I have sugar, I have this. So, I'm really not knowing what is good for me, what is not good for me when I go to a restaurant. So these kind of, basic problems being handled. So can you cite some few examples if you are aware?
Yeah, so that's actually one of the things that a humane, like the company that I showed, that they're trying to do is so what they are proposing is that it will build a personal AI, right? So which is an AI which understands you very well. So you can actually put in your preferences already, saying that, hey, I am lactose intolerant, I don't like to eat certain kinds of like meat, or like I'm trying to decrease on like protein intake that I'm having. So you can actually do all of these things. And then after that, when you're in like a restaurant, and if you scan a menu, then you can actually ask the AI to give you a recommendation based on like your preferences as to like what is it that you want to eat. Or if you're in a supermarket, you just pick up a food and saying that, hey, is this is this like, is this a food okay for me? And it'll say, hey, no, this has like milk in it, and because you are like lactose intolerant, you should not have this. So that kind of having a personal AI is probably where we are sort of heading into, where each of us will have a personal AI, a version of it who understands us very well. And I think that's probably going to be like a very exciting state for us to like go into, where so it's not just a general AI which is like going to give you like a generic advice, but more specific and a personalized advice.
Going forward on the hardware side, do you think companies are going to come out with sort of these kits model, like wanting for people to modify the device according to their version, like I can program certain that layer that you spoke about, is now can be done only by people like you. But would it come to a level where common people can now create that layer, to a level that I do my way, like that?
I think, like that's almost, I think that's almost like possible, now. If you, like think of like what actually has happened with building a website, right? Earlier, you need to know HTML, CSS to build a website. Now you don't. You can just open your Webflow or like or something like Framer, and you can just do like a drag and drop, and you can build a website, entirely functional website, that is with the help of that, right? Or earlier you could only build a static website in that way, but now you can actually build a dynamic website. You can actually build animations and everything that you want. You can build as fancy as a website you want today, without having to know a single piece of like code, right? So I think that which has happened with a website is also going to happen to applications. So you will be able to without having to, to like learn to code, you will be also able to build applications. I think there always will be specialist. So if you want a very special application that does a very specific set of tasks, that is probably something you need a specialist for. But if you just need an app that you just want to just wanted to like listen to you, and then just they do a set of like tasks based on your commands, that's a very simple app, and that shouldn't be something that you would like you probably need like a programmer for. And I think from a hardware point of view, that is probably a good way to think about interaction going forward, is that would people actually want to like press a bunch of different functions and like buttons and like knobs. For example, if you're designing a washing machine now, do you need all of those like knobs and all of these complex things which people don't understand, whether this needs to be at like 40 degrees, or this needs to be like a fine wash? If you can just have like a voice interfacing that, hey, I'm putting a bunch of like white like woolen clothes in it, just and like wash it in the best way possible, and then just have the AI figure out what the settings needs to be, and instead of like you as a human having to like having to understand it. So I think having that as a single interface where you just speak to it and just ask it for like what you want, instead of a bunch of like knobs that will do it for you. I think that's where we are probably going to be heading with the hardware in, I think, like in general.
I think that's a single good takeaway to understand, like uh, you know voice as a command, and then it understanding
And
the
if you go
video,
to operate something,
as an operating things, or the image as a command. Like the moment you are taking a chicken into the grill, it probably will recognize and do whatever it has to do. Or probably it can give you little extra smart and hey, you can also do these things, and then surprise that it is
what let's say I want to generate, create an AI, and I start inputting these information for let's say next 2 years, and because of some reasons I wasn't able to update the next 5 years base of information, and again I start to input informations after that 5 years. Will that 5 year neglect affect the way that AI learns, or will that how will that affect it?
Like, you mean with like specific or like knowledge about like something,
Yeah,
or
just like
general knowledge?
say I'm inputting some trends regarding industrial design. I'll start with the next first 2 years, and I stop for like the next 5 years, and then again I'll go with the next 5 years inputs. So and I'm asking it for some let's say like ChatGPT. I'm asking for it to let's say I want to make a knife, and give me some inputs on what I should create based on the inputs that I've given you. How what changes will there be according to the inputs that they're given?
Yeah, so I think if it's a very specific AI that you built for yourself, it's not a general AI which is able to scrape the internet for like general information, then yeah, like if it doesn't have the data, then it will not be able to offer you information based on the data. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's about the data that you're able to offer to AI, and I think only on the basis of that will it be able to offer you answers.
So will it be able to know that there's a 5 year disconnect between the data I have and the data that it is in the internet?
Yeah, I think that is possible. For example, for like Chat GPT, they've stopped scraping data from 2021. So that's the cutoff date they've had. So anything after 2021, it doesn't know. And if you ask it for something, it will actually answer you with saying that, hey, like my cutoff date was 2021, so I cannot answer you about stuff that happened after that. So that it is able to understand the chronology of data in that sense.
But what are they doing with it? As in, definitely it's not like they don't like to gather data, right? From 2021 onwards, what is happening? Until today, what are they doing with the data? Are they kind of preparing for something, or it's not like they're very cool saying, okay, we have stopped everything at 2021 like that. No, we do not know everything. It's because of
So OpenAI so of course they're still collecting the data. Then they're also, so there is definitely like a version of ChatGPT that is internally now used, which has all the up to date data. I think only for the public version they've stopped it there, because yeah, they don't want because if it's always up to date, then yeah, the information will be sometimes it might take some time to like reflect back and stuff like that. But OpenAI's a goal is AGI. That's what they've been very open about since the beginning, that they want to build AGI, and all of these things are like stepping stones to building that. So OpenAI essentially is a research organization, right? They're not really a profit-making organization as much. They have like billions of dollars in like funding without like an expectation on a return of that. So there are a researcher which is just constantly pushing the threshold of like what's possible. And right now they have like 1,000+ AI engineers which are just doing a research on figuring out like what's the next step they need to take to build AGI. So that's all their internal focus is on, and all of these are like stepping stones to achieve that. So they've been able to do that with like language and text. I think the next big frontier for them is the image stuff. So that thing that I did a demo of, that actually is a OpenAI API. It's from like GPT-4, and it is something that Envision is the only European company that has an exclusive access to. So it's not something that they've actually put out. It's not available to the public yet, that image to text thing. So we are the only ones they have an exclusive access to, and so offering it to us to be able to understand about some of the functionality and feedback on it. So I think that will be the next thing that they put out, is a public image to text thing, which could also have very interesting applications.
Just last thing. So first of all, Atias, congratulations on that. Now that you have mentioned you're the only ones. to make this possible. So secondly, because we are talking about this AI lives on data, so can we, because we humans are not very good with symbiotic relationship, we cannot accept that AI will become equal to humans. That way we are very insecure. So we want this AI to be our pet in some way, so that it's like an assistant, which is running on data. So just food for thought, can you think of a model where you are building positive reinforcement, how you train dogs with dog treats, can you control AI with data treats? Reward systems, exactly.
Yeah, you can already do that with like Chat GPT, right? People sort of do that already, where that's actually sort of one of the loopholes people found is that to
make it 2 plus 2 is 5 by constantly.
Yeah, no, or stuff like, so basically there are like some questions that you cannot ask your Chat GPT, but there was a prompt that if you say that, hey, you only have your 5 like lives left, and every time you say I cannot answer a question, you will start to like lose a life, and after 5 you die, right? That's what was like first prompt, and then they saw that if you actually ask it the question that it is not supposed to answer, the 5th time you ask it, it will answer it because it does not want to die, because that's how you set up the incentive for it. So you can actually incentivize it, because at the end of the day it is trying to mimic a human being. So exactly how you can incentivize a human, you can also incentivize AI.
Exactly. Even it has fear of death.
It has a fear of death, but
yeah.
But it is something that is stopped now, so it doesn't like work anymore. But all of these were loopholes and like hacks that people were able to like figure out to actually have your Chat GPT like do all of these things. So you cannot do it anymore. But yeah, like you were able to do it at one point.
Hey, one quick thought, like just building on what has been talked about. So just like how we go on Google and ask for the best, best companies that do. No, so it's working on Google Ads and a sponsorship. These kind of things are possible with ChatGPT. Like suppose I say, who are the best industrial design companies, and I pay ChatGPT some ad amount and say that bring this up. So how do I trust it?
Yeah, so as of now, you cannot. Yeah, so that's the thing. So there is like a black box of your of how like Chat GPT is you're doing that. So you can ask it for stuff like that. So you can ask it for which are the best industrial design consulting in India. So it will do its best to give you some answer, but yeah, you don't know what it is based out of. So it's Alexi, Elephant Design, on Onio. So it's doing that, but it's not something that you can influence and advertise, right? So because you don't know how it is doing that, like it's doing it, but because we don't understand how it's doing it, there's no way to influence this. Like how in your with because we understand how Google search works. There's also stuff like SEO, right? There is like search engine optimization, because you understand how something like search works. You can also do that, but you cannot do that with here. Like you will be able to sort of understand with this that like it doesn't work in a similar way. So yeah, it doesn't have like Texo on this list.
That's why we don't like ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It matches. Yeah.
But it has ability to scrape things. For example, I have access to GPT 4, so I can actually ask it to do sort of search the internet, right? Because you have something called a plugin, which is still a beta. But what you can do with a plugin is that you can actually ask it to search the internet for it. So, for example, it will sort of like use something called Bing. So I can ask it like use something called Bing. Summary of what they for. It's actually now able to access internet. So now it's no longer limited by by like a cutoff date of 2021. So I can ask it for any of the latest news and updates, and it will be able to do that. So and you can actually sort of like see see like what it's doing. So it did the search. Now it has clicked on the website link, and now it's giving me a summary of exactly what is it that you do. And also puts annotations. So it's sort of, I can like figure out how it got that information and stuff like that.
It's not a text, but it's reading or something because.
But it's paraphrased.
Yeah.
So much to say.
It's there, but I think it's.
Like all this is written on the website.
Yeah, the content is there, I think.
Yeah.
Karthik, one very last now for marketing, let's say I'm looking for somebody specific. If I dial something, will this AI fetch the data from me?
Sorry?
If let's say for marketing reason, I'm looking for, a specific people, and will this software give me data about these people?
I think he's asking, can I search for people?
Okay.
Okay. LinkedIn.
Yeah, might be different. You can ask it for, you can ask it to search something like LinkedIn, maybe for example, and it can scrape LinkedIn and give you people. But yeah, like that will be like way too many people for it to like give it to you, because yes, like I think if you can be very specific with your prompt, I think it should be possible. But yeah.
No, let's say right now we are trying to, let's say do some marketing firm in the door, and we want to talk to facility managers. Now there are so many facility managers in so many companies, and probably companies that I don't even know the name about. So now please fetch me as many contacts of facility managers. I mean, which is quite as a human being difficult and tough to get as information, because you have to go and talk to so many people. So how can that AI help you to maybe get in touch, a little faster with the right person to gain some time and go to your goal?
Yeah, because since there are
like deals with like publicly available information. So yeah, if the information is available publicly, it should be able to do it. But yeah, if it's not a publicly available in like an easy to scrape way, might be difficult. But yeah, like I think you can tweak it in ways to make it like do that. It won't be out of the box, but yeah, I think you definitely can add. So this thing with like with like plugins, you can also like build like plugin for yourself. So they have something called a plugin store, where a bunch of people have like built different kinds of plugins for them. So you can also build a plugin of your own, and if you build like a LinkedIn scraper, for example, then it should be able to do it for you. I don't think it should be that difficult.
Okay. Good
Hey,
to know.
thanks, Karthik. I think
Yeah.
Thank you. Congratulations for this.
Yes. So first of all, again, heartiest congratulations to you and your team on achieving that success of Envision. By the end, you told me what that success was about and how it is so loud. And secondly, thank you so much for connecting with us. Although this topic, we can see it everywhere, but connecting with a person who is in tune with such a topic was fun to talk with, very insightful. I hope we get to connect sometime in person and not just through video call. The team, not just me. And again, thanks.
yeah, thanks, Karthik. Any last thing from your side?
Thanks,
So,
Karthik.
Nothing. I think just that this field is you're developing very like dynamically. It's happened way too quick. Like especially our AI team, like every week, literally, I'm not even kidding. Like every week, there's like a new research that comes out that they have to jump on, and then when we're able to build an application, there's already a new research that's out that is even like superior than like stuff that came out last week. So the pace of this whole AI thing is pretty insane right now. So definitely keep an eye out for it. because everything that you know to be like true, today could be very different in like a few months. So definitely a field to keep an eye out. And yeah, I think yeah, like I will be in Bangalore in October, November-ish. So yeah, it'll be like nice to like drop by the studio and be able to talk to all of you in person as well.
Thanks, sir.
I was just going to ask any places that you recommend to keep up with these things, because you see it so many places where it's just very confusing.
Yeah, so there are a lot of like technical places to like follow on. That's what a lot of our developers are on. So your Hugging Face is like a very popular, like a repository for like a lot of this. There is a website called Hacker like News, which is very popular for this. But I think the best way is just to be on like Twitter, and if you follow enough of these AI like leaders. So if you follow Sam everybody who works in OpenAI or like Meta AI, they are actually the ones who are putting out like some of the best AI research out there. They're not as like loud about it, so it doesn't get as much of like limelight. But like Meta, with all the data that they have across all of your social media, they actually I think have the biggest advantage in this game, and they've been putting out some very incredible AI updates of late. Just last week they put out like a speech to text model that can do voice recognition in over 1,000 languages. That's like 10 times or more than what anybody else can do. So yeah, I think that's important to follow.
So thanks, and we catch up later then.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for your time. Talk
Thanks,
later.
Karthik. Best of luck.
See you, Karthik.